Hi, everybody.
So, for those of you that don't know Jay, he, and most of you know, because my name is on the page, so Anna Maria, but this is Jay. Scoot over here because I don't know if they can see you. Let me make sure they can see you, because if not, you're going to be a ghost talking. But, so this is my husband, Jay, and I started the page because my sister helped us, and I really feel like she gave us our life back, and that we actually are living now. And we're in our middle age, what I call our middle age, as much as I hate to say that, but I'm embracing it because I actually feel really good in my middle age. And I feel younger than I did when I was in my 20s. And the reason that I opened up the page is because my sister did help us, and I'm lucky and blessed that my sister is a physician. And I'm lucky and blessed that she is a specialist in exactly what she did for us. She's an obesity medicine specialist. She's a lifestyle medicine physician. She has researched this. This is her specialty. She has certifications in culinary nutrition, and she was a pediatrician prior to her moving into lifestyle medicine and obesity medicine. So we were very lucky because she actually helped us, obviously for free because she's my sister, and she spent days and hours and weeks and months with me on the phone every day, dissecting our food, dissecting what we were eating, dissecting our nutrition. And I felt like I had to give back what we have received from her to people that are willing to work on their nutrition and willing to work on their health. I am not out there to convince you to be a plant-based eater or a vegan. This is not about being a vegan. So the people that are here for those reasons, I'm glad that those are your reasons, but our reason is for health. By product, we are eating, no animals, so we are helping the earth in that way, but that is not my primary reason. My primary reason is giving back what instruction my sister has given us and giving it forward to those that want to help themselves. So having said that, this is my husband Jay, and maybe he can answer the question that everybody always asks me, which is, how did I get you to do this? How did I force you to do this?
So I guess for me, I come from a family that has a lot of health issues. Obesity, heart problems, diabetic problems, etc. So, I heard her from the other room say earlier that her father, who's a doctor, looked at me when I was very young and we weren't even married yet and said, "You will have diabetes." And that did prove to be true. And for about 20 years or so, I was diabetic, and I never heard anyone say that you could reverse that. And then when you talked to your sister and she said it's possible, I was all in to try it.
But you weren't convinced yet.
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because all I'd ever heard is the opposite. That your progression is you're pre-diabetic, you're diabetic on pills, you're diabetic with insulin, and then you suffer the horrible consequences of being diabetic. And
you watched your mother.
And I watched my mother, and other members of my family suffer with it. And it's not pretty, and I didn't want to go that way. So I was all in with trying it. I didn't believe that it was going to work because I had all that swirling words in my head from 20 years of doctors, a bunch of different doctors, the media, everything, just saying, this is what you have to resign your life to. And so I was willing to try it. And, the best thing we did was, we started this right after getting some blood results, and then we went and did our blood work a few weeks later, 3 or 4 weeks later, and the improvement was dramatic. And I'm a very analytical type person, so I literally have 7 years worth of A1C readings basically every 3 months. So I have them on a chart, on a graph. It's a very simple, put an A1C number in the date and then chart it out. And
Your cholesterol and everything.
yeah, I also have cholesterol, blood pressure, daily fasting glucose, and all the CBC and what's the other one, CMT, metabolic panel results. I have all that. And
I have to interrupt and say, my sister did not know this about him, and he's known my sister since they were tiny little girls, because I'm the older one, and she chuckles because she says that we're the best guinea pigs because of his spreadsheets. That he's the ideal patient with all the spreadsheets.
Yeah. So what really convinced me to embrace this wholeheartedly was after just 3 weeks of eating whole food plant-based, the number improvement was dramatic in pretty much every measure. And then after that, I started not taking the medicine any longer after advice from my sister and from my doctor to go ahead and give it. My doctor said, let's go ahead and give it a try. She was not on board at all.
Oh yeah, our doctor was not on board with what we were doing. Our doctor was very skeptical. And
right.
We go to the same doctor, and we started going to her together while we were going through this. And she was very resistant. And she said, this isn't gonna work. It's not gonna help you get off medications. Nobody gets off medications. And this was our primary physician. So I would then go back to my sister, and my sister would say, just stick with it. We'll see what the numbers say. The science will prove itself. And lo and behold, it started proving itself. And our doctor, by the time we were all off medications and everything was transpiring to where the numbers there was no lie. The numbers were there. She was flabbergasted. So now she introduces us to other patients and the other doctors in the practice and such, and she's like, these are the patients that I've been telling you about. Right. And it's by no fault of doctors. We can't badmouth doctors. They have not been trained in nutrition. This is nutrition. What we're doing is nutrition. We're playing with food to fix our bodies instead of pills. And doctors have been trained in what they're treating you. If they're a primary, if they're a pediatrician, if they're an oncologist, if they're a surgeon, they get hyper trained in what they are specializing in treating you for. And when they go to medical school, nutrition is not something that is covered, but it is changing. And that's why the American College of Lifestyle Medicine Physicians exists. And it's been around for a really long time. It's just that it wasn't an explosive field. And now it's becoming a bigger field because they're noticing that it needs to be, that all doctors need to know about the nutrition. But unfortunately, the doctors that are out there that treat us do not have the knowledge. So, but 3 weeks we got the blood work, right?
Let me go back to the story. So we took the blood work, we started eating whole food plant-based for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we got our blood work again. And the number improvement was dramatic. That got me really excited about continuing this. And I got off of the diabetes medicine, metformin, and shortly after that, the next 3 months, my number actually went up a little bit, but that was without medicine. It went up just a smidge, just 0.01 of a percent.
Your own body was doing the work.
So that was my body doing the work without the medicine. And then 3 months after that, so now 6 months after starting this, it fell off a cliff. It improved so much, it went to a level that I hadn't seen since I have data, which is all the way back to 2017. I was just looking at it before I came in here. I have the A1C numbers back to 2017 every month, or every 3 months. And so it went to a level that was amazing. Never thought it was possible. And all the other numbers around
and to be
lipid
clear,
panel
it
cholesterol.
normalized. It normalized.
Yeah, it's completely normal.
And we never thought that he would see normal, that he would see a normal A1C.
Right.
And mine had crept up to diabetes, and mine went to a normal A1C. But that's why I say it's a marathon, not a race, which is what my sister's words. It's a marathon, not a race. And his did go up a little, and he would have daily fluctuations where it would go up and down, up and down, up and down, because, we got frustrated, and I would talk to my sister about it, and she would say it's his body trying to be normal. It's his body trying to believe that you're going to be consistent, trying to believe that you're going to feed it the right things. And when it believes it long term, it's going to show you back that it's going to perform normally. But if you fail it, then it's going to yo-yo, and it's going to up and down, up and down. So until it goes normal. Now, he can have, when we went on vacation to France, we could have things, he could have things that he would normally not have been able to have as a diabetic, and his A1C still stayed normal, or his blood glucose stayed normal. So, and that is something that we had never seen, but we're already 14 months into this, and it's only been 14 months, and it's been such an impactful change in our paper blood work, in our proof. But then the other question is, you were carnivore, omnivore, animalvore, however you want to call it, and everybody, the second question that they say, or they state it and then they ask me, they always say, well, I can't ever do that. I can't leave animal. I can't stop eating animal. And then they say, how did you get him to stop eating animal? Like, I could never stop eating animal. I said those same words to my sister before I ever even inquired about this lifestyle. Before, my sister's been a vegetarian, and then when she found out how beneficial, and she started doing research as a physician, she then changed to whole food plant-based, and I, having a vegetarian whole food plant-based sister, would say, I could never, I could never, I could never. And here we are, complete believers, because of the health change that it has done in us. But how do you live without animals and the steak and the ribeye and all the things that we used to eat?
I think the number one thing is that I'm never hungry. I'm always satiated. I never have that craving. And the other really big thing for me is that while the idea of having meat or a seared ribeye or something sounds great, I can smell it, I don't want to look at the numbers in my chart and see them go back up. And so, you know, I'm not tempted because I always feel satiated. I always feel.
And what do you do? I cook for us.
Yeah.
But what things do you do to start your day to satiate you?
Oh, I absolutely crave and can't live without my overnight oats.
He's as bad with his overnight oats as I am with my soy yogurt. I'm gonna get something and I'm gonna let him tell you.
I have a huge helping. I mean, it's probably 2 cups worth of overnight oats every single morning, and I put flax meal in it, chia seeds, and hemp hearts usually, and then some kind of berry, blueberries or whatever berries are in season, and then a dash of maple syrup, and I have that every single morning. I can't live without it, and so that gets my day started off great. And I go 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes without feeling like I need to eat something else. And the other thing that I think was really smart when we started out this is chef made her green power muffins, and the recipe's on there in the interwebs somewhere. And
those are well, that's my sister's green power muffins, but then I adopted them for us.
Okay, hold on, let me finish the story. So she had those sitting around. I have always loved raw vegetables. So you've seen our kitchen, so we've got tomatoes, potatoes, you know, all kinds of vegetables sitting around here all the time. And whenever I would get a tiny bit hungry, I would walk by and grab a stalk of celery or a potato or a handful of tomatoes.
But in the beginning, it was muffins. It was stuff
And
that was
muffins,
substantial.
right,
Hummus.
right.
Hummus with vegetables.
So that's my point, is that there was a lot of things that were whole food, plant-based that I could use to stuff my pie hole when I got hungry. And that did happen a little bit, because as we were learning to add the nutrition and the fiber into it, you know, there were a few days in the early days where I was really hungry right after started. I'm talking about in the first week or two. And after that, we learned enough to be able to get through that by adding all of our nutrition. So having those healthy snacks, we'll call them, you know, from hummus to, you know, the vegetables or whatever, the power muffins was a great way to transition from being a meat eater into a plant-based eater.
So let me say this, when we evaluated, because I kept asking him, are you okay? Do you like what we're doing? And he told me in that first week that he was hungry. Then I talked to my sister about it, and she said, you have to stay satiated. You have to feed yourself. This is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. So it clicked in my head, so I changed what we were doing to having breakfast, and then he became annoyed at me because I would bring him food, and we did breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, or smoothie, dinner, dessert, and snack again. Snack that was a fruit at the end of the night.
Yep.
So a lot of people do the fasting and things. We never did fasting. We truly were eating all day long from when we woke up until right before bedtime, with a fruit was our ending. So when he told me that he was hungry, I kept us satiated by making sure that we were having, and it doesn't mean that we had to have a huge meal. It could have been a snack empanada, a green muffin was the snack, a small plate of hummus with veggies and or another dip with veggies, our breakfast cookies. We might have had my soy yogurt in the morning. He might have had his oatmeal, then a breakfast cookie and fruit, and we would try to combine it in the beginning so that his blood sugars wouldn't spike so much. We would always combine it. So my sister always said, for the meals, always have beans. So for lunch and dinner, we always had our protein, which was the beans and the legumes, and the vitamin C and rich foods with it. But for breakfast, we would have, you know, waffles that were whole grain, and those we would have for snacks. Sometimes I would make waffles, which are waffles that are falafels, which are rich in protein because they're made with chickpeas. So, and we would spread them with hummus and veggies. So the balance was all there. The balance of that plate that I showed you would be in a snack. So the plate that I showed you, where we did the plate with the beans and the legumes, the grains, and the cruciferous veggies, that would also be in our snack. So if I did a snack this big, it was still this plate. This proportion, but tiny. Or not tiny, but it would be the hummus with the veggies and smaller. And then, you know, our muffin would be a cruciferous veggie, spinach muffin, or fruits and multigrains. So it would be a balance of the plate in a smaller form. So the balance is there at all of our meals for whole foods and for nutrition. So now we don't need to eat breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, dessert, snack. And when I'm talking that we had dessert every night, we did. We had dessert every night. We had chocolate lava brownies or chocolate lava cake, or I found desserts and things that we could eat within the whole food family that were not going to be bad for us. So we would make silken tofu cocoa pudding that tasted just like the Jell-O pudding. And if he's my taste tester, so I would make something to make sure that it would pass approval. And so I knew that if I would make something and it passed approval in the taste test, that we were golden. So the silken tofu chocolate puddings that taste just like the Jell-O ones, or we would have some type of pumpkin chocolate cookie, or we would have a chocolate lava cake, which was made with zucchini. So it was, you can't tell the zucchini's there, but it's soft and it's moist like a chocolate lava cake would be. Or chocolate cookies that were made with oatmeal, but with cocoa, or cacao, not cocoa, not sugared sweetened cocoa, but cacao and maple syrup. So we use whole ingredients. So yes, we were having dessert. And if we want to have dessert every day, we do. I have a freezer full of, you have peanut butter balls, and we have pumpkin peanut butter cookies with chocolate chips, and I have my sweet potato cookies, and oatmeal cacao chocolate cookies. Yep. And so key is
all plant-based.
All plant-based, and the key is having food prep in your freezer, fridge, and pantry, so that you can always go to it and grab and go. Either from the freezer, like the empanadas that are going in the freezer, I can grab and go. I can grab for poppin', eat a snack, or we could have 4 for dinner with a veggie bowl, or we could go in for a dessert. We also have ice creams, nice ice creams where you take banana and fruits and you buzz them up in a Cuisinart, and it's a nice sorbet ice cream that you can even put cacao in it and it becomes chocolate ice cream. So all those things are in our freezer at this moment, and we could eat them.
Yeah, and I want to change the subject just a little bit. One of the so my biggest motivator was to avoid diabetes, right? Secondarily to that was heart health, and a lot of that comes from cholesterol. And the key to what I learned is that the key to improving your body's ability to handle the glucose that's in your blood and your body's ability to have normal cholesterol numbers hinges on one thing, basically, and that is the reduction of your saturated fat intake. And that's why, dairy and animal products are.
But we're not doctors, so we can't explain that. It would be something that you need to look.
But hold on.
Yeah,
But for me, I'm able to eat huge amounts of carbohydrates, such as my massive bowl of oatmeal, without having a blood sugar spike anymore, because now my body doesn't have the saturated fat in it, and so that the muscles are able to use that glucose that's in the body. What was happening before is that the saturated fat was basically a blocker of your muscles using that glucose that's in the blood, and therefore the concentration of glucose builds up in your bloodstream, which causes high glucose.
And I want you to explain to them, because we are not perfect, and once we went into plant-based, we were very committed, but it doesn't mean that we were perfect throughout the time.
Yeah.
The one thing that I did emphasize, and I wanted to emphasize, he would get a little bit more down if the numbers for him, because he takes his blood glucose every day, so if he had spikes, he would get a little bit more down and upset that it wasn't working. And my sister kept repeating, it's a marathon, not a race. It's a marathon, not a race. But the thing that was the most important is that I actually think that the failures that people call failures, we don't ever call them failures. We don't ever say, oh, we failed at Thanksgiving because we ate too many standard American foods. We failed at vacation because we ate too many standard American foods. We tried our best in the situations that we've had for 14 months. We've gone on vacation several times. We have been to other people's homes. We have, and we have tried to make the best choices for us. We bring dishes, or we eat the best things that we can get. And we do sometimes will enjoy some of the standard American foods, and it actually, those, what people would call failures, became good things. Because because lessons learned, and I'll let you talk about where your lessons were on that, but for me, when I would have anything that was standard American food, it tasted bad. It tasted oily, it upset my stomach, so I didn't like the feeling. It gave me instant inflammation. If I go to a restaurant and I have something that's too salty, the next day I can't take my rings off. I get completely swollen. I can see it in my face. I start instantly feeling arthritis. I start getting arthritis in my fingers. He doesn't get affected as much as I do when it comes to the salts outside of the home, but I do. When I started having those feelings and I had those instances, not of failure, but of having gone out into the outside world of the food, I didn't like it. So I choose now when I go out, or if I go to someone else's home, and it's something that I can't eat for my own personal choice because I don't like the way that it feels. I don't like the sickness that it puts in my body. I don't like the inflammation. I don't like the side effects that it gives me. So I choose not to do it. But in the instances that he's had 2 instances where you've chosen to eat animal. One was on a cruise ship, and he chose to eat animal one day. And one time in France, he chose to eat animal one day. And what happened when he's normal, his body is normal, but what happened when he had the animal?
For me, I'm not as sensitive as she is, so I don't feel all the inflammation and all that stuff, but I do see it in my daily glucose numbers. It's obvious. So on both of those occasions after I had animal, my numbers, fasting glucose, were elevated for 3 or 4 days afterwards, and then they came right back to where they were before that. So it's very obvious how it affects my body and how long it takes to clean that up. So in my case,
and that's where the saturated fats.
Exactly, because there was a spike of saturated fat that I put into my body, and the effect of that showed over 2 or 3 days in both cases. Actually, after the cruise, which was our first
vacation
after starting this, and we were still new and we were still figuring it out.
2 months in we were.
Yeah, we were only 2 months in, and it took my body about 2 weeks to kind of get over that. I gained, I think, 10 pounds in that 5-day cruise,
and we tried to do good.
And we tried to do good, and we exercised a lot. We actually walked around the ship and did weights and all that kind of stuff. So even with that extra exercise, and plus touristing around, doing a lot of walking, even with that extra exercise, I still gained 10 pounds, and it took me about 2 weeks to shed that. The last France, I gained, I think, 7 pounds, but it was off in like 4 days.
Yeah,
it was very quick, and it just fell right off of me after that. Once I got back to, not eating baguettes, and I did have
multi-grain baguettes, and we were eating whole food baguettes, but still,
I was eating way more than
but you did.
I was enjoying myself.
You did have animal one day in France, and it affected you, and it affected your blood glucose, and it affected you for 4 days, I think it was.
Yeah.
And until he cleaned it up by eating the right things after that. So those choices are not failures. Those choices are teaching moments for yourself, your head, to connect to your body, to connect to what you're doing, to realizing that you're human. You can't take a vacation from health. I've heard people say, oh, you can take a vacation from diabetes. You can eat whatever you want for that week of vacation. It's not worth it when it's going to change the longevity of what you're doing of your life. In the beginning, doing the animal fats, the saturated fats, did spike him for 2 weeks, and he had to clean it up for 2 weeks. Now his body is so normal that the spike is so minimal, but it doesn't mean that we can do it. It doesn't mean that we're gonna go out and it's like, oh, now our body's normal, we can go eat an animal again, because it would slowly build up or quickly build up to what it was before. And I always tell people, it's a marathon, not a race, and
I think it's actually a marathon, not a sprint.
okay. My sister says not a race.
Okay.
So it's a marathon, not a race. Or maybe she does. I always have my own isms. So then he calls them Anna Maria isms. So, but my point to it is, we're in our middle age, and it took us a really long time to get unhealthy. And it took us a long time to build the weight and get to the point of desperation that we were at. And a long time to build the bad health and have it progressively get worse. So you can't expect to clean it up in a month, in 3 months, in 6 months. You have to give yourself the respect to know and the intelligence to know that just as long as it took you decades to do the damage, it's not going to take decades to undo the damage, but it might take a year and a half, 2 or 3 for you to see really normal numbers, really normal body. You will see normal numbers. He saw them within 7 months where he was being taken off medications and then his body was trying to be normal. For some people, it's 7 months, but it depends on where you began with your health. For some people, it might be a year. Just because you see a spike, it doesn't mean that it's not working. You have to give it a chance, and you have to give it the every 3 months blood work. And even if you show up for some blood work, you have to be real. You have to find the realness in it, and you have to dissect what you did. That is one thing that I have done, and sometimes he doesn't like it, because I know what we put in our bodies because I'm the cook, and he does his blood glucose, so I like to know what my food does to his body so that I can fix it. So it's also an experiment. If you're the home cook in your household, you need to be aware of what you're combining, and you need to work together. So he works by telling me what his blood glucose does every morning, and if it were to spike above not normal, like above 100, because under 100 would be normal, his blood glucose, then I know that something happened in my cooking to spike it, or the combination of foods that we had spiked it, so then I can make the changes. So you have to be real. You have to be real about what goes into your body.
Yep.
I think it took you longer than it did me,
Yep.
especially because he was a diabetic with medication, and because he doesn't have a catalog in his head of everything. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman, but I have a catalog in my head of everything that goes into my body and everything that goes into his body, because I was always so worried about his diabetes and I wanted him to be healthy. So I was always watching what he was eating to make sure that it was the right combinations. And I'm hyper aware of it. But not everybody is. But you do need to become aware of it, because it will be very helpful. And you need to be truthful. So when those numbers and spikes happen, you need to be truthful and go, what did I do? Did I eat animal? Did I indulge in too many sad foods? Did I eat too many saturated fats?
Did I have peanut butter?
Oh, yeah. So I'll tell you a little story about the peanut butter. We found out that saturated fats, we believed saturated fats, because he was like, why are my numbers doing this? And why is my cholesterol doing this? So my sister helped us dissect, and we had a little mouse that kept going into the peanut butter jar. So we figured out that he was dipping into the peanut butter jar and his blood work didn't come out the way that it should. So we started dissecting everything that he had eaten that quarter, and lo and behold, he had been digging into the peanut butter. So now he knows that if he's gonna have peanut butter, he knows to keep it at a certain level, even if he does dip into it like a mouse, because you still do.
Yeah, and balance it out and exercise, and not be surprised if my numbers are up a little bit. In the beginning, it was a surprise, but that's where failure became a teaching moment, where I, learned that, maybe that's not the best thing for me, or I need to be really careful with what I put into my mouth and how much.
Correct.
So
And you also need
It
to be
helps.
real of where your health is. You need to have a conversation with your doctor. Some of you might have more extreme health issues than where we were at. We luckily had not he didn't have any cardiac surgeries, cardiac stents, or any big procedures. I didn't either, but there are members of ours out there that have had those, so you might have to be a little stricter with what you do with your plant-based diet. We are pretty strict, and we are mindful with the saturated fat, the plant saturated fats. We don't eat fried things, we don't use oils, we curb and use minimal use of the walnuts, the avocados, the coconut, the olives, the nuts, and the nut butters. We do use them, but we're very mindful, and I know how many times in a week I can use a combination of those foods and us stay normal and his body stay normal. So you have to constantly evaluate, it's learning what your body does. Don't just run away from it. It's like when I say weigh yourself twice a day. Unless you have issues with weighing yourself twice a day because you've had problems with food or anorexia or anything like that. For me, it was very helpful to weigh myself twice a day. He does the same, because in the morning you see what you weigh, and then you see what you ate all in the day and how many pounds the food that you ate that day. You didn't gain it. It's just food that you put into your body that weighs. And so you don't get freaked out at that number. That number should not be something that you freak out over. That number should be a teaching moment and a matter-of-fact number, and like, oh, okay, I ate a ton of food today, so I'm up 3-4 pounds. It doesn't mean that you gained it. It just means you have 3-4 pounds of food in your body, especially when we eat a head salad that's the size of our head.
Size of that bowl right there, not kidding.
Yes, so...
I can easily gain 3 pounds in a day.
Me too. And then the next day you're right back to the weight that you are. When you go on vacation, when you go to a restaurant, when you go outside your house, if you had too much sodium, if you had food at a restaurant, it's going to have more sodium and oils and things, even though you might say no oil, no sodium, no this, no that. It's still in there. And I don't even have to weigh myself to know that. I know it from my fingers and the achiness that I get in my arthritis in my fingers. But when I'm eating plant-based, I don't have any of that. And I feel like a 20-year-old. And I can sprint like Tigger. So I think this has gotten pretty lengthy, guys, but we wanted to kind of give you his perspective because everybody keeps asking me, and I don't like to answer for him. And everybody that knows us knows that he was a huge carnivore. We had cast irons to sear our meat, and we had cast irons to sear our ribeyes, and we were known for making a mean ribeye on the Barbie, and no one can believe that he is doing what he's doing, what we're doing. I think they can believe that I can do it, but also I am a cook, and I was the one that would have these elaborate gourmet dinners, and I would have all the animals on the plate, and I would cook all the different animals, and people are flabbergasted when they figure out what we're doing, and we're the last people on the planet that they thought would go plant-based. And
it's really interesting for me because I think women compliment women much more frequently than men compliment men. But even I'm getting comments like, wow, you look amazing, you look a lot younger, you look so healthy, all that kind of thing from other men, colleagues or people I work with.
But do you also feel the difference inside? Do you feel as good as I feel?
Yeah. I mean, and that's always my response is thank you. You're commenting, I don't say this part, but they're commenting on how I look on the outside, but I always respond, I feel so much better too. I mean, I feel stronger, healthier than I did literally in my 20s. So for me, it's like I've taken off 2 or 3 decades.
And one thing that we did
chronological age
is weights. One thing that we did add that we had never done in our life is we consistently do weights. But we have never been athletes. Our son is an athlete, which is ironic. that we've never been athletes. We don't know how that happened.
That's a golfer.
But well, you were a golfer, yes. But I mean, he's a hyper athlete.
Yeah.
So, and then we got out of shape. So we could not. We didn't even. We were not athletes, and we've never been runners, and we've never been huge exercisers. We're like those gym people that went every once in a while, you know, like 4 times a year or something. But now we try to exercise in some form 3 or 4 times a week, and we do try to lift weights. And during those 3 to 4 times a week that we exercise, sometimes we just bike ride, sometimes we walk, sometimes we will go to the gym and kayak, and sometimes we will row at the gym, and we like doing 3 different sets at the gym. We'll do cardio, and we'll do the weights, and we will do another type of cardio, and we'll do the weight machines, and we'll spend at the gym about an hour and a half. An hour and a half is worth it if you're working on your health. And the other thing that we do is we turned it into a date. It's like a fun date. We never used to exercise together before. It was like, oh, don't look at me. Don't look at me exercising, because, you know, you just didn't want your partner to see you. He especially hated going to the gym together. Don't look at me. He would go and disappear and do his thing. And now we kind of make it into a date thing. I do some machines by myself. He does some machines by himself, and then we come together. And then, you know, it just becomes a fun thing. We go bike riding, we go kayaking, you know, we go walking, we go exploring, we go hiking, and it's a date thing. So that's a different perspective too. So I think we'll wrap it up because it's pretty long. I don't know how you guys are going to put up with this big long video, but if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. I don't know what else I can think of that people ask me. I'm sure it'll come up.
By the way, I'm sous chef. That's a chef. I'm the sous chef. So if a recipe is sous chef approved, it's good.
It's good. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a happy night. I put these empanadas in the freezer.